Anyway, let's see what happens here. Let's see if I can drop this camera. I can't see if the light's on or not. Okay. So, I'm sure you guys remember me doing this before. Well, guess what? I'm doing it again. I am a glutton for punishment. Yeah. So I figure, well, let's do what we can. I put some Goof Off, I think it was, cleaner on here for now, just to see what it does. Seems to be doing pretty good. You may or may not see all that I'm doing here because of where the camera's at. But I'm using a brass wall here, or a brass pad, whatever you want to call it. Brass wall is kind of a what do you call it? It's not wool, it's brass. But anyway, figure I'd get this cleaned up a little bit. Finish my coffee. Now, I was watching somebody the other day, I forgot who it was. He's doing his car over. He's doing a nice job, by the way. You know, sometimes we all have our own ideas on how to do things. And sometimes we listen to people that know, sometimes we listen to people that, okay, gets it done, but just that we work twice as hard. So, you know, it's one of those things to where you got to kind of figure out what works best for you. Now, in his case, he was working on some rust around the door jamb or around an edge, near the drip edge, a rain edge on the van or a pickup truck or whatever it was. And, he was having a problem getting a sanding block in there. So he ended up doing it by hand without the sanding block, which means sandpaper and hand. Which can work, you know, and will work over time. And sore fingers. And then you also have to worry about the sandpaper slipping and your hand coming off it, and then your hand goes up against the rust that you're trying to remove. And getting rust into your hand is not a good thing. Now, I'm not going to say I'm the best body guy in town, nor do I know it all. However, I did own a body shop. Now, I didn't work it that much. My brother worked it, and I basically opened it up for him originally because he wasn't working, and I had the shop, you know, the garage. It was like 40 by 100. It was a big shop. Actually, it was longer than 100. I was able to get a full 18 in there. So, plus with plenty of room. So, anyway, we'll say 100. And hold on a minute here. What do I want to use? I'm just going to use a little bit more of this Goof Off, see if it's working. But to make a long story short, I did do some body work as well as some mechanic when I wasn't working my other jobs. Like I said, my brother was there more than I was, and he's the one that kind of like did all the work. He's one of these guys that should be working on TV because he's a top-notch man when it comes to mechanics and body work. So he kind of missed his call. But it was just hard for him to keep a job because he couldn't deal with idiots. And sometimes with him, everybody that didn't do it his way was an idiot. So he did have a little bit of a personality problem. But that happens sometimes to guys that are good. You know, they don't want to deal with people that don't want to listen to get the job done. And not necessarily meaning their way is the best way, but if their way has always worked for them and worked right, and you're working for them or with them, and your laziness or wrongdoing is going to prevent them from getting ahead or getting it done, well then you're going to get pissed. And that's my brother. He knows what has to get done, and let's get it done. Get it done right, and not kill us when we're doing it. So, for that reason, he found it hard working for anybody. So, by me having a shop and him working for himself was kind of the best way to go. I mean, even I had a hard time getting along with him at times. But because I was his older brother, things went a little bit easier. But meanwhile, where I'm going with this is, if we had a place like, for instance, this little gap here that I'm doing, this track with the brass. Now this track is actually not a good example because this track has a cut in it to hold the guide. But if this was an edge and I had to sand that and it was a flat edge and I'm trying to get up in here, doing it with sandpaper by itself would be a pain in the ass because it's going to tire out your hand, your fingers, and I'm putting myself in jeopardy of if there's a steel sliver or rust and the paper sticks and my hand continues, I'm going to end up getting cut or rust in my hand or whatever. So, you know, you gotta sometimes think about that and work safe, work smart, and also work so that it's going to be the best way to get the best results. So what we would do is we would take a dish sponge, and they sell sponges for this reason. Some of them are already have the sand grit on them, but we would just take a regular dish sponge and wrap the sandpaper around it, and the sponge would settle right in and do what we had to do and give us the pressure we needed without jeopardizing our fingers. Now, does it always work? No. But does it work? Yeah. Definitely worth trying. Yeah. You always got an old sponge laying around. Instead of throwing it out, rinse it out, let it dry out, bring it in the shop. And if you got to use it wet sand, or with a liquid on it, or if I want to put goof off on it, I put on the sponge with the paper, and away I go. You know, if not, the sponge is at least holding the paper and protecting my fingers and doing the job. Because again, you don't want to do anything that's going to make you work harder. So now he got it done. He did it by hand, you know, using just sandpaper, and he got it done. So it's not that his way was the wrong way. This is not my way. Now see, some people wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. They would cover this, and that would be the smart way of doing it. But I never claimed to be smart. There. Sounds like the wife is just about done out there, so I can go out there now with the hand more. So we finally got a nice day. Like I said, fireworks for tonight. Great night. It's gonna be a good night for fireworks. Luckily I don't have to work them unless there's a fire. See, now that's something I disagree with. So, helping the community, I agree with. Doing what you can to help. You know? I mean, don't always think of yourself. You know, I mean, it's not going to hurt you. And you're not doing anything. And you can help somebody else or the community. Why not? You know? That's the way I look at it. However, sometimes the town takes advantage of those who give. And that's not just the town, sometimes it's just people in general. But what I do is basically just like the fire department. I think 70% of our fire department is volunteer. As I am. Now we do get a little bonus money at the end of the year if we get all our training and we do so many calls. Which is nice, you know. It's nothing that you can really say, well, I'm going to go out and have a good time, I got to go out and buy a new car. You know, it's nothing like that. But, you know, it's something. So, the town itself also has a traffic control division, which is made up of, what do I have down here? What did I buy? I got paint thinner and mineral spirits, so I can use this. So they have a traffic division, which is made up of just average Joe Blow people, citizens. And they're actually on the payroll. They get a pay. When they go out, they get paid for it. But they go out. They do traffic for like crossing guard stuff, you know, for the schools, parades, you know, stuff like that. You won't catch them out at the fires or emergency or accidents unless it's a real disaster. Then they get called out. but for most part, no. And the reason being is because they get paid, so the town doesn't want to spend money if they don't have to. That's the way I look at it anyway. But when we had that kid that drowned, 11-year-old drowned a couple of years back over here in the pond, we had to shut down a couple of roads, main roads, for a long time. And we had all my squad out there. And we were still short. You know, and then they had the department, the police department, fire department, but they can only have so many, you know, tied up. So then they called up some of their traffic control people. Now the thing is, here we are working alongside of them, doing more basically than what they do, because it's an emergency scene. They're used to directing traffic. They're not used to shutting down roads. They're getting paid for it. They're standing right next to us. They're putting their hand up to stop traffic just like I would be doing. They're setting up cones just like I'd be doing. So a lot of it entailed the same thing. And they're getting paid. So, getting back to some of the town, sometimes a little of this is a little unfair, so you got to pay attention to what you're doing with the town. Now, I don't know how I got onto that subject, but meanwhile, you got to watch it anyway. Now also, what happens is, our job basically, when we go out on a scene, we go out because the fire department's there. We're part of the fire department. Our job is to keep the firemen and their apparatuses free from harm. We don't want them to get run over. We don't want them to get hit by a car. We don't want the apparatus to get damaged. We don't want people tampering. We don't want people near them. We don't want people near the fire. So we keep everybody away. Somebody can get next to that apparatus and screw around with it, and next thing you know, the firemen are in a house trying to put out a fire, and there's no water coming through the pump because some asshole decided he wanted to put his hands on it. And there are people that will do that, not thinking. They may or may not mean harm, but they still do it because they don't understand. Don't touch. And you'd be surprised how many times you'll see a car saying, well, I can get through there. Well, maybe you could, but you're not, because if a fireman decides to have to back up or run around to get a piece of equipment real quick, and you're sneaking through there, you're going to hit him. He has to be able to move without fear of getting hit. So our job basically is to protect them and the apparatus. However, we get stuck doing traffic duty once in a while. And that's where I think the town is screwing up. So I got to actually talk to the chief about that, because we'll go out on an accident call because the fire department's there, so we have to be there. If the fire department doesn't go, we don't have to go. If the ambulance goes, we have a choice. You know, if it's a medical call. But when we go and we get stuck doing traffic so that we can free up a cop. Now, 99% of the cops in my town are good guys. I wouldn't mind freeing them up or helping them out. And as long as I'm not doing something else, you know, for the fire department. But we're not there to free up law enforcement. We're there to protect our people. And when we get stuck doing traffic and the cop leaves because we're there, that's wrong. Because they have a traffic committee. Call the traffic committee out to do it. But see, they don't want to do that because they have to pay them. Okay? You see where I'm going with this? That's good, because I have no idea where I'm going with it. So I think if we get stuck doing traffic purposely, being say, okay, take care of this, all right, we got to free up a law enforcement agent, you know, a cop, from doing traffic, which is part of his job. We should go on the clock. And that's all there is to it. We've had the same amount of training. Now myself, I've had training in criminal justice and all that as well, because I used to teach a lot of that when I taught. I used to teach bail enforcement and things. You have to be able to, you know, get into some of the criminal justice. You don't have to go through a 2 or 3 year training, but you got to go through, you know, a little bit on what they're doing and what their obligations, responsibilities, and abilities and rights are within the criminal justice system. So I have probably just as much training in that they do. And in some I even may have a little bit more because I've been in different positions than they have as well. I mean, do I remember it all? Probably not. Would it come back to me? Probably so. Do you have to be recertified? I have no idea anymore nowadays. So if that's the case, even though I know it, I'm no better than the guy that doesn't know it because I'm not recertified. You know, not being recertified is just like not being. It's like your gun permit. If you don't renew it, you don't have it. Driver's license, you don't renew it, you don't have it. It has nothing to do with it. You know, oh, I had it, so I know how to drive. Yeah, but you don't have it now, so you can't drive. All right, let's turn the light off. Let's turn this off. Let me get away from that. I do have to get one more rag because I have to go over there. You can tell I've been doing a lot of labeling.